I never expected my grandfather's well would become the center of a vicious HOA battle until Margaret Wilson dumped concrete in it while I was away. But she had no idea I'd been laying a legal trap for months. What would you do if you discovered your neighbor's vendetta wasn't just about property rules but a decades-old family grudge? I still remember the day I inherited Grandpa Joe's farmhouse. The lawyer handed me the yellowed envelope with shaking hands. "Your grandfather was very specific about this property," he said. "He wanted you to have it." Inside was a hand-drawn map of 5 beautiful acres in Willow Creek Estates, including the stone well that had supplied fresh water to the farm for over 100 years. I traced my fingers over the rough paper, feeling tears forming. Grandpa had shown me how to draw water from that well when I was just 8 years old. 2 months later, I moved in. The farmhouse needed work, but the land was gorgeous. The well stood proudly in the side yard, its stone circle rising like something from a fairy tale. I spent my first weekend clearing away weeds and repairing the roof that sheltered it. My next-door neighbors, the Thompsons, stopped by with a basket of muffins. "We're so glad someone's living here again," Sarah Thompson said. "Your grandfather was a wonderful man." "Thanks," I replied, offering them water from the well. First thing I did was test the water. Still pure as ever. David Thompson glanced nervously at the street. "Just so you know, the HOA's gotten stricter lately. There's a new board member who's enthusiastic about rules." I laughed. "The HOA doesn't apply to this property. Grandpa made sure of that when they formed. I have the original documents." Their relief should have been my first warning. 3 days later, I was watering my vegetable garden when a shadow fell across the soil. I looked up to see a woman in an expensive tracksuit standing at my fence. Her blonde hair was pulled into a tight ponytail, and she wore oversized sunglasses despite the cloudy day. "You must be Joe's grandchild," she said without introducing herself. "I'm Margaret Wilson, HOA Board Vice President." I wiped my hands on my jeans. "Nice to meet you." "Your well is an eyesore," she interrupted, pointing with a manicured finger. "The HOA requires uniform landscaping. All water features need approval." I took a deep breath. Actually, this property was established before the HOA. It's exempt from those rules. Margaret's smile tightened. "No property is exempt from maintaining community standards. I've already documented several violations." She pulled out her phone and snapped pictures of my yard. "I have the legal documents," I explained calmly. "My grandfather negotiated specific terms when the neighborhood was developed. This well is both historical and my water source." "We'll see about that," she said, turning sharply and walking away, her expensive sneakers crunching on the gravel. That evening, a certified letter arrived. 3 violations for unapproved exterior features, non-compliant landscaping, and unsafe structures, each carrying a $100 daily fine. I called the number listed and reached Thomas Reed, the HOA president. "I understand your concern," he said hesitantly. "But Margaret is correct that we have standards. However, if you have documentation of exemption, please bring it to our next meeting." After hanging up, I dug through Grandpa's files in the old oak desk. There it was, the agreement from 1982 when developers first created Willow Creek Estates. His property was clearly listed as historically significant, with existing structures grandfathered in perpetuity. The next evening, a knock at my door revealed Julia Johnson, an elderly woman from down the street. "I saw Margaret at your fence yesterday," she said quietly. "I need to warn you about her. Last year, while Roy and I were visiting our daughter, she had our koi pond filled in. Claimed it was a mosquito hazard. 20 years we had those fish." My stomach twisted. How could she do that without permission? "She waits until people are away, then claims emergency action," Julia said, her hands trembling. "We tried to fight it, but the HOA backed her. Said we never had proper approval, even though the pond predated the HOA rules." I invited Julia in for tea, and she told me stories about other neighbors. Mr. Finch's garden shed torn down, the Parkers' play structure demolished, and the Rodriguez family forced to remove their traditional front gate. That night, I couldn't sleep. I went outside with a flashlight and stood by the well, running my hand over the cool stones Grandpa had maintained so carefully. Something about Margaret's intensity frightened me. I made a decision. The next morning, I called 3 people, a water rights attorney, a security company, and the State Historical Society. Your grandfather's well could qualify for protection, the Historical Society representative explained. These hand-dug wells from the early settlement period are becoming rare. We'd need to document it. The security company installed cameras, some visible, some hidden, around my property. That afternoon, the attorney, Elaine Morales, reviewed Grandpa's documents. This exemption is solid, she confirmed. But HOAs can be aggressive. Document everything, every letter, every conversation. I started a detailed log, including photos of my property each day to prove its condition. I also printed hard copies of Grandpa's exemption agreement and placed one in my car, one in my bag, and one in a waterproof container by the well itself. Over the next few weeks, Margaret led a parade of inspections past my house. More violation notices arrived. When I presented the exemption documents at the HOA meeting,